Everyone, welcome back to the Leadership and Transformation Podcast for leaders who want to live from calling, not just cope from chaos, cope with chaos. I'm Justin Spurlock, and today's episode is called Clarity in the Chaos, Leading Without Anxiety on Sunday Mornings. If you've ever shown up on a Sunday and the coffee didn't brew, the slides didn't update, a volunteer no-showed, or your sermon still felt unfinished, then you are not alone. Ministry leadership is a sacred calling, but it can be both holy and hectic. And in those rushed, reactive moments, it's easy, so easy to lead from anxiety. But what if Sunday morning didn't have to feel like a fire drill? What if your leadership could actually calm the room instead of absorbing its chaos? Today, we're talking about how to lead with clarity instead of anxiety and how your presence can be the most stabilizing force in the room. Let's start here. Anxiety never leads us to clarity. Anxiety never leads us to clarity. Why? Because anxiety rushes. Anxiety tightens our grip. Anxiety wants us to fix. Anxiety pushes us to control. Clarity, by contrast, breathes, listens, opens space, gives options instead of panic. And here's the most important part. When you lead with clarity, others are more likely to step into trust, creativity, and calm. Your presence on Sunday morning preaches long before the sermon starts. The tone you carry shapes the tone of the entire community. So how do you actually do it? I want to talk through 6 practices that help us lead with clarity, even when things feel chaotic. First, name your anchors. Clarity begins before the coffee brews. On Saturday night or early Sunday morning, ask yourself, what is mine to carry tomorrow? What is not mine to carry tomorrow? What does faithfulness look like rather than perfection? What one fruit of the Spirit do I want to embody? Now, I love that last question because I think a lot of times most of us go, yeah, the fruit of the Spirit, I think I've heard of that. But do we know it's love, joy, faithfulness, goodness, perseverance, hope? Do we know these actual traits? Do we cling to things like compassion and kindness? And whether you're in Galatians chapter 5, the actual fruit of the Spirit, or Colossians chapter 3, or Philippians chapter 4, or 1 Corinthians chapter 12, and we could just go on. I mean, there's almost a section in every one of Paul's letters that has some sort of list like this, right? What is that one trait you want to embody? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, long suffering, perseverance, goodness, faithfulness, compassion, grace, mercy. This isn't just reflection, it's soul prep. You're not just running a service, you're creating an environment, you're setting a climate. And that clarity gives you a spiritual anchor, one that doesn't get knocked over when a mic cuts out or a greeter no shows. Just like when an athlete warms up, you and I need a pre-game routine too. So that leads us to number 2, ground yourself before leading. Here's a few grounding practices to try. 10 minutes of silence or breath prayer before you even leave the house. Maybe on a given Sunday, you only have 5 minutes. Maybe on a given Sunday, you only have 30 seconds for that. Take the moment, stop, spend the moment in silence, spend the moment breathing, spend the moment with a prayer mantra. Christ in me, Christ in you. A circle of silence with the worship team before you begin. A circle of prayer with some volunteers before you begin. These aren't luxury habits. They're formation. They train your body, your mind, your spirit, your soul, not to mirror the chaos, but to transform it. Practice 3. Systems set you free. Let's get practical. One of the best ways to reduce anxiety, a system. Clarity comes through preparation. Are volunteers and staff clear on what to expect? Are your slides and bulletins done early enough to review, not to scramble? Is someone else empowered to handle minor issues? I love when I know what the Sunday morning roles and flows are. Each and every week, we have a sheet that tells us here is the plan for the worship service, so that everyone knows what's happening when. And then I know who to assign out and who is assigned out to various roles. These systems create clarity and they lower my own internal noise. They lower the external noise. They create space for presence and peace. Next practice, speak clearly, not just kindly. Sometimes anxiety makes us too nice. Sometimes anxiety makes us vague. Sometimes anxiety makes us avoid hard feedback or avoid even giving hard feedback. But true kindness includes clarity. Instead of saying, would you maybe help out if you have time? Instead say, could you greet for the next 10 minutes? Instead of brushing off a mistake, say, thanks for stepping in. For next time, here's how we're doing it. People feel safer with clear communication. Recently, my wife and I did interviews for an administrative assistant job in her line of business in the therapy world. And every single person, when asked what they need most in leaders, spoke about clarifying communication. People wanted to know the boundaries. They wanted to know the expectations because they don't want to be shamed. They want to be guided. Next practice, lead with curiosity, not control. Something's going to go wrong. What now? What then? Pause. Take a breath. Ask, what's actually needed here? What's the most loving next step? Because you and I are not here to fix everything. We're here to respond, not react. Leading without anxiety doesn't mean being passive. It means choosing peace over panic, presence over performance. Next action. Reclaim worship for you too. Let me say something that might be hard to admit. Sometimes you and I forget to worship on Sundays. Sometimes you and I believe that it's impossible for us to worship on Sundays. But I promise you, you were made for communion with God too. Sing, pray, receive communion with intention. Let the faces and the seats and the pews stir compassion, not pressure. You are not a worship producer. You are a worshiper who happens to be leading others to do this good work too. In closing, clarity is contagious. Your presence becomes a mirror. If you lead from anxiety, others catch anxiety too. If you lead from calm, people exhale. Clarity is not about perfection, it's about remembering what's true. I'm not God. I'm not a Messiah. I'm not the Savior. I don't need to know everything, but I am someone through whom the Spirit brings peace and hope and love and joy. So this Sunday, take a breath, anchor yourself, step in as a non anxious presence. Let your clarity be the sermon that no one hears, but everyone feels. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to Leadership and Transformation Podcast. If today's episode helped you, share it with a fellow leader or leave a review to help others find it. And remember, you don't have to carry everything. You just have to carry what is yours. Lead with peace, lead with presence, lead with clarity. And until next time, stay grounded, stay kind, and keep answering the good call. Thanks for joining us.